Hey, Ace and Beaky here, and I was thinking to myself, well, might as well pump out some creative ideas that maybe some people will get something out of if I can't, talk about you know what involving you know who. You know. The thing is that I was thinking to myself, what would make a good Animorphs game? Because Animorphs is one of those things that, once again, I feel deserves respect, but it hasn't gotten the credit that it deserves. It had a TV show where a lot of the actors and actresses were actually really nice and talented, but the TV show played it too safe, and they wanted to turn, once again, what was something that was dark and kind of messed up into a ripoff of an already established icon to make money. It's kind of like the cartoon Ghetto, but with young children's books. But Animorphs is kind of dark for a kid's book. It's like, I think that it should be more of an Adult Swim anime once you realize how messed up it can be. But this isn't about the TV show, this is about a video game. Now, to my knowledge, there's been like 3 Animorphs video games, and I think I did play all of them. One on Game Boy Color was a Pokemon ripoff. And the thing is, the idea about having different animals to morph in battle with different stats is kind of makes sense if you could maybe apply Pokemon to it, but it was just a Pokemon ripoff. And then there was one where you could be where you were basically, it was almost like it was trying to be a Final Fantasy-esque RPG with a plot. And the combat kind of felt like, okay, it's gonna be turn-based like Final Fantasy, but then like you select buttons that are like high kick, low kick, high punch, low punch. So it's almost like Final Fantasy meets Street Fighter. An idea that I'm not going to say is bad, but I don't know if it worked this time or if it was the best thing to apply to Animorphs, but, kudos on you for trying. And I will say that the PC game, Know the Secret, actually kind of had some of the good storytelling of the books. Like the PC game, actually kind of got the camaraderie between the characters when they were in good moods together. And then there was the Animorphs game on PS1 that felt like it could have been a really neat game. It felt like they were going to do a lot of cool stuff with it, with the art design and all that. But then it was like, but then it got turned into like one of the most wiener games out there, it's where you just jump around and then you turn into an animal and you do one attack and it's the same for each freaking character. That is lame, man. I mean, like you're trying to turn it into like Crash Bandicoot, but with like, the combat's retarded. My God. And of course that happened because of Columbine. Pop Arena did a good video on these things. He explains it better than me, but I'm just summing it up to have a stepping stone. What do I think that Animorphs should be as a game? Well, somebody else already suggested this, but I'm just going to recap those 2 suggestions and how I think it would work out. Somebody said that Animorphs should be like a game like Persona, where half of the game is high school stuff, where you're interacting with people and you're not fighting and you're talking to people, and there's little games like that, and then there's time for dungeon crawling. Now, I wouldn't say it would be RPG-style dungeon crawling, but whenever it goes to the action-oriented part, the best thing that I think that it would basically be a squad-oriented Batman Arkham Asylum / Shadow of Mordor. I mean, the fact that it's a stealth-ish action game where it seems through stealth, solving puzzles, and combat to kind of emulate that guerrilla war feel that you got from Arkham Asylum and Shadow of Mordor. But there would be other things that would go into play besides that to make it unique. One, there would have to be some like stealth squad. There'd have to be some squad mechanics and that's where it'd be really hard, because whenever you have a stealth-ish action game, you're not really there working as a team. You're there working as individuals that are not trying to be seen because you're not in a group. So it'd be like if you could somehow make the squad tactics of Republic Commando, of EA's Freedom Fighters, or even Mass Effect kind of translate to a game that was like, Arkham Asylum Arkham Asylum and Shadow of Mordor, that would be great. But there would also be kind of the animal simulator aspect, because you're not just meant to be one or two dangerous animals, and then it's all about, okay, how much is a rhino going to be better than a tiger in fighting in this situation? Yeah, you have that to where some animals would be better for tanking, and some animals would be better for stealth, and some animals would be somewhere in between. But there's also the thing and the fact that not all of it would be fighting. Even when you're on the battlefield, you could do recon as a squirrel. You could go through the ventilation shafts as a squirrel. You could fly around and do recon as a fly, or, even try to turn into an animal, and whenever everybody's left the room, you would, as a rat or a lizard, you would sneak in and type in something on a computer by jumping on the keyboard to unlock a door for somebody else. And to me, that sounds like, how can we incorporate this to where we're not just ripping off a fighting game, but we take into account what it means to be an Animorph. You're basically kids who have the ability to turn into animals with some limitations to fight a guerrilla war against aliens, okay? But you have to make it a secret guerrilla war. So I'm almost guessing that it would almost be like, it would be like, I think the gameplay would be split between something like Persona and The Sims a little bit. Whenever you're not fighting, and whenever you are, it would probably be leaning more towards Shadow of Mordor and Arkham City, but, maybe emphasizing the Splinter Cell thing because you don't want to get seen until shit hits the fans. But there'd also be an aspect of, okay, how can we use our animal morphs not just to fight people when we get into a fight with them, but to find a way to sneak in, to find a way to monitor somebody, to find a way to cause a distraction, to find a way to do our daily stuff. Because not everything in Animorphs is about fighting. The fighting gets visceral, the fighting gets vicious. I don't know if it would be a thing to where maybe it'd be like a first-person Shadow of Mordor and Arkham, to where it would make it rated M, but you would learn the adrenaline rush of being a fast-paced predator or a dangerous herbivore, and you would get up close and motherfucking personal with the Hork-Bajir, the Texans, and the human controllers that you're ripping to shreds as they're slashing into you too. It would be an adrenaline rush when it finally happened. And I don't know if I would say that it's meant to be like a first-person Arkham City and Shadow of Mordor, but with animals. But if it was first-person, would it be kind of almost feel like, with what I mentioned before as a base, would it almost feel like Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay, mixed with that really bad dog simulator game called Dog's Life, where you try to use the sense to track things and all that? But maybe it doesn't need to be, a first-person version of that. That could be incorporated into... You kind of already have that detective mode thing in Arkham, in the Arkham games about Batman, and in the Shadow of Mordor games. But the thing is that, I would love to hear your opinions on this. I would love to hear your ideas. Pop Arena even said himself that all three of the Animorph games were kind of bad, but they at least had one good idea that could maybe be salvaged. Maybe for a quick time event where you want to get the most out of a combo against an enemy, it would be for that split second, kind of like the fighting and know the secret. Maybe the way that you do acquire morphs and measure them would kind of like being a less fantastic version of Pokemon. And maybe some of the designs and the outlook would kind of look like what the PS1 game was going to be fully realized. But the best suggestion that I heard was that basically, half of the game or a third of the game would be like maintaining the high school appearance and gathering intel as kind of like Persona, and the other half would be a bunch of missions that would be like Arkham City, Shadow of Mordor, but because they have thought speak and they're fighting a guerrilla war, somehow take that stealth-ish action game and add some quick and simple squad tactics. And also make it to where you use a variety of animals that you morph for doing things besides just combat. That it would be what would get you to go through the ventilation shafts. Those are just things that I can think up off of the top of my head. And of course, if you're fighting Visser 3 and his huge ass straight from hell alien morph, then that would be one of those things where you can climb on his body and have locational damage like in Shadow of Colossus and other games. Anyway, this is Ace and Beaky. I gotta let you guys go, but I would love to hear your ideas in the comments section to openly brainstorming. Catch you later.